During the Cold War, there was always a need for the USA and the USSR to be the superior superpower. And as soon as one satellite was launched, the race was on. So let's set the scene. We're in Nazi Germany 1944. Now what happened in Nazi Germany in 1944? Yeah, that's right, World War II ended, at least in Europe. After 5 years of brutal war, the Nazis finally surrendered. During the war, the Nazis had been experimenting with rockets such as the V2, hoping to one day be able to put a bomb on a rocket, which would give them a huge advantage since they could strike targets that conventional weapons couldn't. The person put in charge of these rockets experiments was a guy named Wernher von Braun. Now the thing with von Braun was that he wasn't really interested in building weapons, he was more interested in going to space. But since he couldn't go to space because Germany had a major world war on their hands, he hoped that when the war was over he could build new rockets that were capable of going to space. And I guess you could say his plan worked. Let me explain. To understand von Braun's situation a bit better, you need to understand that both the Soviet Union and the US wanted to build rockets as well, and they also wanted von Braun to help them. And von Braun knew that his guards had orders to shoot him dead if he gave himself up. Von Braun now had to make the decision if he wanted to escape to the US or the USSR. But since he knew how oppressive the Soviet government was, he opted for the USA. Weren't we supposed to shoot him if he left? Yeah, we were. So von Braun went to the US to help them with their space program. Or so we thought. You see, the Americans had come up with a new type of big boy bomb, and they wanted to, you guessed it, put it on a rocket. Von Braun was put in charge of building a rocket that could go up to the atmosphere and then fall back down to Earth. It was never intended for him to go to space. He was just supposed to build ICBMs. Now the Soviets back in Germany didn't have anything yet. They scrambled and they found something. That's a rocket. We could use that. They found a bunch of old rocket parts and shipped them back to Russia and put Sergei Korolev and his team of engineers up to the task of figuring them out and building their own. A little after that, Truman, Stalin and Churchill held a meeting to decide what to do with post-war Europe. So, Stalin, now that you've taken half of Europe, are you gonna move back to the Soviet Union and live out your communist utopia? Let me think. No. Okay, if you just excuse me for a second. You know, Stalin seems a little aggressive, don't you think? Should we bomb Japan without telling him? Yeah, we should definitely not tell him. Did you really just... Wow, that was hella rude, and you didn't tell me? Look, I thought we were friends. Anyways, I have tons of spice in the Manhattan Project, so I'm just gonna build my own nuke. What? Do you remember how I told you von Braun wasn't allowed to go to space? Well, that's because the Americans didn't see any point in space travel. But von Braun thought to himself, what if I make the people of America interested in space? Then I'll have to be allowed. I need to make a phone call. Hello, is this Walt Disney? Yeah, it sure is. What can I help you with? So you know space? Yeah, why?
To help show you what is being done to solve these problems, we have called upon one of the foremost exponents of space travel, Dr. Wernher von Braun, who is at present the chief of the Guided Missile Division of the Army's Rocket Center.
Yeah, that's right. Von Braun decided to convince the American people that space is awesome, which it is. So now there was some pressure on the government, and they decided to start doing some space stuff. Yeah, we're gonna start doing some space stuff. Woo! But as the US started its space programs, the USSR made staggering progress. By that I mean they launched a satellite. Sputnik, the first ever man-made satellite, was sent to space in 1957. This wasn't good for the USA since their image outward and ability to influence the world was damaged. So with this crushing defeat, it looked like as if von Braun was finally gonna get some funding. And then the Soviets launched another rocket. this time with a dog in it, a dog named Laika. Laika was a test to see if an animal or later human could survive in space, but Laika died. Not from the launch or because of some malfunction, but simply because the Soviets hadn't even tried to come up with a way to save her. Okay, can I please launch my satellite now? Wait, the Navy has a satellite, the Vanguard TV3. Let's see if that one works first.
There were a number of failures during the year, and the United States promptly announced them. The first and most spectacular of these was Vanguard at the end of 1957. There were other Vanguard failures, all achieved takeoff.
Mr. President, a message from the Soviet Union. Okay, now you can go. On the 31st of January 1958, the first ever American satellite Explorer 1 was sent to space by von Braun and his team. This was huge, but not as huge as the Soviet rocket Vostok 1, which would launch 28 months later. The Vostok 1 contained Yuri Gagarin. Now he was, get this, a human, and when he got back he was paraded around the world promoting the Soviet space program. Now the USA did get Alan Shepard, the first American to space, but John F. Kennedy by that point had had enough of being behind.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon.
JFK promised to put a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. Something that would succeed, but sadly he wouldn't live to see it. So now was all hands on deck to put 3 men on the moon in 7 years.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
I'm going to step off the limb. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
They'd done it. For so long, von Braun had wanted to go to the moon, and now the USA had won the space race. You might wonder where the Soviet Union had been all this time. Well, they were also trying to go to the moon, but Korolev and his team didn't get anywhere near as much funding as von Braun. Then Korolev died. Even though he and von Braun were rivals, they shared the same passion for space. And Korolev had worked so hard to see one of his rockets get to the moon. So this is where the space trend ends. The Soviet Union had been one step ahead for years, but it was America who crossed the finish line first. However, there were some interesting things that happened after. Like the Apollo-Soyuz mission in 1975, where an American Apollo module docked with a Soviet Soyuz module. This was an inspiring moment where 2 opposing nations who had been at battle for decades finally shook hands. Today's space looks a lot different. Nations are cooperating and people are looking onwards further out in our solar system. The space race between the USSR and the USA was the first and last space race, right? Or was it?